The last time my father hugged me, he was already saying goodbye. I didn't know it then. If I had, I would have held on longer. I would have noticed the way his hand pressed twice against my back, the same small gesture he'd done my entire life when words felt unnecessary. I would have memorized the weight of him, the smell of his jacket, the quiet certainty that he was there. But I didn't, because goodbyes don't announce themselves. My father wasn't sick, not officially. No diagnosis, no hospital bracelets, no whispered warnings. He was just tired. That's what we told everyone. He worked too much, slept too little, smiled less than he used to. When I asked if he was okay, he waved me off with that familiar half smile and say, "I'm fine, kiddo, just getting older." I wanted to believe him. It was easier than asking harder questions. We weren't the kind of family that talked about feelings. Love was practical. It showed up in fixed sinks, paid bills, rides home at midnight, and quiet sacrifices no one ever acknowledged out loud. My dad wasn't a man of speeches. He was a man of presence. And because he'd always been there, I never questioned that he always would be. The last time I saw him, we stood in the hallway of my apartment. He'd stopped by unannounced, said he was just in the area. He hugged me before leaving, longer than usual, tighter than necessary. I remember feeling slightly uncomfortable, pulling away first because I was already thinking about the rest of my evening. "Don't work so hard," he said. "You too," I replied automatically. Such empty words. Such wasted space. The night before he died, he called me. That alone should have felt strange. He hated phone calls. He preferred showing up in person or saying nothing at all. But I was busy, half listening while answering emails, nodding at things he said about work, about traffic, about the weather. About nothing important. Or so I thought. At one point he went quiet, long enough that I checked whether the call had dropped. "I'm proud of you," he said suddenly. It caught me off guard. He'd said it before, but never like that. Slower, heavier, like the words had weight he needed me to carry. I laughed, uncomfortable. "Okay, what did you break?" He chuckled softly. "Nothing, I just wanted you to know." I told him I was tired, that I'd call in properly over the weekend. That we'd catch up soon. He said of course, like he always did. Like time was something we had in abundance. We didn't. The phone rang before sunrise the next morning. I recognized the number immediately and still didn't understand. Heart attacks aren't supposed to happen to your father. Not to the man who never missed work, never complained, never stopped moving. By the time I reached the hospital, he was already gone. They told me it was quick, that he didn't suffer, that he probably didn't even know what was happening. People say those things to help you breathe again. I couldn't breathe at all. At the funeral, people lined up to tell me how dependable he was, how kind, how strong, how he'd helped them without ever asking for anything back. I stood there nodding, hollow, replaying that phone call over and over in my head. The way his voice had lingered on, "I'm proud of you." The way I hadn't said anything back that mattered. Grief didn't hit like a wave. It seeped in, slowly, quietly, cruelly. In grocery stores where I reached for his favorite cereal without thinking. In hardware stores where I stood frozen in an aisle wondering what he'd recommend. In moments of panic when my first instinct was still, I should call Dad. Then I remembered. The worst part wasn't that he died. It was realizing how much he carried alone. Weeks later, while sorting through his things, I found a small notebook tucked into a drawer. Mostly lists, measurements, reminders, ordinary things. But near the back on a single page he'd written one sentence. "Make sure they know." No names, no date, just that. I sat on the floor holding it, finally understanding. He hadn't known how to say things. He tried anyway. In his own quiet, imperfect way, he tried to leave something behind that mattered, and I'd been too distracted to hear it. People say you shouldn't live with regrets. That guilt doesn't help the dead. Maybe that's true, but it teaches the living something brutal and necessary. Now when I love someone, I say it. When I'm proud, I don't soften it with jokes. When something feels important, I don't postpone it to the weekend. Because I learned the hardest way possible that sometimes the last hug feels exactly like every other one. And by the time you realize it mattered more than usual, it's already gone. I love my father deeply. I just wish I'd shown it louder, while he could still hear it.